Welcome to my channel, and today I want to share a story that will change the way you think about wealth, respect, and the true meaning of success. It's about a woman who thought she could charm her way into a luxurious life, only to discover that appearances can be deceiving and that the richest rule in life isn't money, it's how you treat others. This story follows her journey of transformation, a wise young girl, and the lessons that show us that humility, integrity, and genuine connections are worth far more than any fortune. In the heart of New York City, under the glittering neon lights and the pulsating beats of a downtown club, Madison Harper leaned against the bar with a glass of champagne in her hand, laughing freely with her closest friends as the weekend unfolded in a haze of music, bright lights, and the carefree energy that always seemed to surround her. Madison, with her perfectly styled blonde hair and an aura of sophistication that drew glances wherever she went, had spent the week juggling a demanding marketing job and endless social obligations, and now she allowed herself to let loose, reveling in the feeling of liberation that the city nightlife always offered. Her friends, equally radiant and ambitious, mirrored her laughter, their champagne glasses clinking in celebration of trivial victories, inside jokes, and the sheer thrill of their glamorous existence. As they stepped out of the club, giggling and swaying slightly under the effects of alcohol, they didn't notice the quiet figure standing just beyond the doorway, a young girl no older than 10, her brown hair neatly braided, her eyes wide and observant, who had been sent by her stepmother to fetch her father, but found herself mesmerized by the lively spectacle of the women spilling onto the street. The girl, Emily Thompson, had grown up in a home that had lost its warmth the moment her mother passed away, and her father, Daniel Thompson, had tried to balance work, grief, and raising a child all at once. Emily, a thoughtful child who often bore more responsibility than any young person should, felt a mixture of curiosity and yearning as she watched these elegant women laugh so freely, something she rarely saw in her own home. Summoning her courage, she stepped forward and softly asked, almost timidly, "Will you marry my dad?" The question hung in the air, almost swallowed by the chaos of the city night, but Madison turned to face her, her laughter spilling over as she tried to process the unexpected intrusion into her carefree world. "Ha ha, so funny," she said, the words laced with playful disbelief. "Let's get married, young lady. I can't read stupid books anymore." Her friend, Julia Reynolds, who had always been more practical and cautious, nudged Madison gently and whispered, "Stop teasing. Maybe her dad is wealthy. I really need rent money this month." Madison, her playful smirk softening into curiosity, sighed theatrically and asked, "All right, sweetie. What does your father do?" Emily looked down, her small hands fidgeting, and said quietly, "He works a very important job, and since Mom died, I just want him to smile again. I want a mom." Madison froze for a brief moment, the laughter in her chest caught off guard by the genuine innocence and longing in the girl's voice, and then a slow, calculating smirk crossed her face. "Fine, bring him to me," she said, her tone both amused and intrigued. Emily added softly, almost as if sharing a secret, "My dad is working in this luxury restaurant." Julia whispered to Madison, "But you already have a boyfriend," to which Madison shrugged casually, a glint of ambition flickering in her eyes. "If her dad is richer, why shouldn't I upgrade?" she murmured, glancing around at the polished marble floors, the elegant chandeliers, and the perfectly dressed patrons mingling in the upscale setting. "This place is perfect. I want this lifestyle." Her eyes sparkled with desire and calculation, imagining the possibilities of frequent visits to such a place if her assumptions were correct. "If he's the manager or the owner, we'll eat here every day. See you later," she added, with a playful strut as she entered the restaurant, her confidence and allure radiating as she scanned the room. And there he was, Daniel Thompson, tall and composed, with a natural charm that put guests at ease. His dark hair was neatly combed, his tailored suit impeccable, and his kind brown eyes met hers as she approached. "It's a pleasure meeting you," he said warmly, his voice calm and inviting. Madison, spotting a prime opportunity, slid into the chair across from him, her mind already scheming how she could maneuver this encounter to her advantage. He gestured toward a bottle of wine on the table. "I ordered the most expensive wine for us," he said with a subtle pride in his tone. Madison smiled slightly, calculating that the wine might loosen him up before she made any deeper moves. "Ha ha ha," she said lightly. "No, I want you to meet my business partner. We own this place together." Daniel's eyes widened briefly at her unexpected declaration, and Madison's lips curled into a satisfied smile. "Well, I really hit the jackpot. My beauty finally paid off," she thought, amused at her own audacity. They laughed together, the conversation flowing effortlessly until an accidental spill of red wine ruined Daniel's crisp white shirt. He apologized gently, excusing himself to clean up, leaving Madison to wait with a poised patience that masked the excitement bubbling beneath her composed exterior. Upon his return, she noticed him leaning slightly closer to another man, laughing softly. And her heart sank momentarily, with the sting of jealousy. Daniel's voice cracked as he said quietly to his friend, "Brother, I trusted you. I thought she might be the one." Madison's expression hardened into a cold smirk as she pointed accusingly. "You liar. You're not an owner. You're just a janitor," she said sharply, a flash of triumph in her tone. "Don't be jealous of your friend. Just walk away like a man." Daniel lowered his head, pride wounded, and tears slipped down his face as he obeyed, walking away silently. Moments later, the real owner, Mark Anderson, whispered to Madison, "I left my wallet in the car. Wait here, baby." And she smiled proudly, the thrill of power surging through her as she replied, "Of course, I'm all yours." Suddenly, Emily rushed over, holding out a small receipt, her voice firm yet respectful. "Miss, my boyfriend owns this place. Go find someone else to call Mom." Emily lifted her chin, her expression resolute. "My dad is the only owner here. His friend is just the janitor," she said softly, but with unwavering certainty. "You looked down on a janitor, but my dad stood taller than you the whole night. You wanted a rich life, but you never learned the richest rule: respect everyone." Madison's confident smile faltered, replaced with a fleeting moment of reflection as Emily walked away, leaving her to reconsider the value of wealth, power, and humility. The next morning, Madison Harper woke up in her sleek Manhattan apartment, the sunlight filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows and reflecting off the polished hardwood floors. But the memory of the previous night refused to fade. She had always prided herself on her charm, her ability to read people, and her uncanny knack for turning situations in her favor, yet the confrontation with little Emily Thompson gnawed at her mind. Emily's words, innocent yet sharp, carried a weight that Madison had never encountered in her usual social circles. A child unafraid to speak truth to power. Madison poured herself a cup of coffee, her fingers brushing over the glossy counter, and for the first time in years, she felt a twinge of introspection. She thought about Daniel Thompson, the man she had so easily misjudged, and Mark Anderson, whose quiet authority and confidence had commanded respect without a hint of arrogance. Something about their demeanor unsettled her. She had always measured success by appearances, by the immediate gratification of wealth and admiration. But these encounters had planted seeds of doubt about whether she truly understood what it meant to command respect. Later that afternoon, Madison decided to visit the luxury restaurant again, not just out of curiosity, but driven by an urge to understand the men she had so casually dismissed the night before. The restaurant glimmered under the afternoon sun, elegant as ever, and she found herself studying the staff, observing the rhythm of the place. The way Daniel moved efficiently, the way Mark seemed to know everyone's strengths and weaknesses without uttering a word. When Daniel noticed her, he greeted her warmly, his professionalism unwavering despite the previous night's awkwardness. "Good afternoon, Madison. How are you today?" he asked, his smile polite yet tinged with cautious curiosity. Madison returned a smile, though softer this time, and decided to ask about his life in a more genuine way. "I've been thinking about last night," she admitted, "and I realized I might have misjudged some things." Daniel's expression remained steady, a gentle nod acknowledging her words without the need for further commentary. Madison was surprised by her own openness, a stark contrast to the confident, calculating woman who had arrived the night before. She asked Daniel about his work, his life, and even Emily. and he shared details with the kind of humility and grace that often went unnoticed by those too consumed by appearances to see. Emily, meanwhile, had grown fond of Madison's visits, though she never let her guard down completely. The girl continued to observe Madison's evolving behavior, curious whether the woman's intentions were genuine or simply a new form of manipulation. Days turned into weeks, and Madison's relationship with Daniel shifted slowly but profoundly. She learned about his past, the struggles he endured after his wife's death, and the quiet resilience that had allowed him to build his career while raising a child alone. Madison began to appreciate qualities she had never prioritized: integrity, humility, and the ability to lead without demanding recognition. Her friends noticed a subtle change in her demeanor too. Julia Reynolds commented on Madison's newfound patience and attentiveness, and Madison found herself less concerned with superficial gains and more intrigued by authentic connections. The restaurant became a place not only of business, but of growth and reflection. Madison started to volunteer in small ways, assisting Daniel and Mark during busy nights, learning the complexities of running such an establishment, and slowly earning the trust of the staff. Emily, observing this transformation, began to relax, realizing that Madison's intentions might be sincere, though she remained cautious, protective of her father and the life they had built together. Mark Anderson, always perceptive, noticed Madison's efforts and the subtle shift in the dynamics of the restaurant. He pulled her aside one evening, the dim lighting casting long shadows on the walls, and said, "I see the change in you, Madison. It's not just about appearances anymore, is it?" Madison paused, considering the depth of his observation, and finally admitted, "No, it's not. I think I've been chasing the wrong kind of success." Mark nodded approvingly, a rare smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "The richest people aren't the ones with the most money," he said gently. "They're the ones who understand respect, compassion, and integrity. Everything else is secondary." Madison absorbed his words, feeling a shift in her perspective that she hadn't anticipated. Over the next few months, her interactions with Daniel evolved further. Their conversations deepened, their trust grew, and Emily began to see Madison not as an interloper, but as someone capable of understanding their world without exploiting it. Madison's life outside the restaurant also changed. Her social calendar became less frantic, her ambitions more aligned with personal growth than mere recognition, and she began to build relationships based on mutual respect rather than advantage. Yet the real test came during a gala hosted at the restaurant to celebrate its anniversary. Madison attended, not as a guest seeking status, but as a participant invested in the success of the people she had come to respect. The evening shimmered with elegance, and as she navigated the crowd, she noticed the subtle interactions. The way Daniel led conversations, how Mark balanced authority with kindness, and how Emily observed everything with the quiet intelligence that had always impressed her. Madison realized that true wealth was not measured by wine bottles or designer dresses, but by the strength of character, the depth of relationships, and the respect earned through integrity. That night, as she stood beside Daniel and Emily, watching them share a genuine laugh, she understood that her journey had transformed her. The thrill of superficial success paled in comparison to the fulfillment of living authentically, of respecting others regardless of their status, and of embracing a life built on empathy and honesty. Madison Harper, once captivated solely by appearance and opportunity, had begun to discover the richness of character, humility, and genuine connection, a journey that would continue to shape her in ways she had never imagined. As the weeks passed, Madison Harper's presence in Daniel Thompson's world became more than just occasional visits or casual encounters. It had evolved into a meaningful, almost integral part of the small but resilient family they had formed. Madison's mornings now began with thoughtful routines, where instead of rushing to lavish brunches or late-night parties, she would stop by the restaurant to check in with Daniel and Emily, learning not only the operations of the business, but also the subtle ways in which kindness and respect shaped the lives of those around them. Daniel, who had long been accustomed to facing the challenges of parenthood and running a luxury establishment simultaneously, noticed the sincerity in Madison's efforts, and though cautious at first, he began to allow her deeper involvement in their lives. Emily, however, remained the true gauge of Madison's character. The young girl had an uncanny sense of observation and judgment, and while she had been skeptical at first, she started to recognize the change in Madison, how she listened more than she spoke, how she genuinely cared for others' well-being, and how she no longer sought wealth as a measure of success, but instead understood the dignity of labor and the value of empathy. One rainy afternoon, as the city streets shimmered with reflections from the slick pavement, Madison and Emily were seated at the corner table of the restaurant, sipping hot chocolate, while Daniel managed the busy dining room. Emily leaned forward, her small hands wrapped around the warm mug, and asked, "Madison, why did you change? Why are you different now?" Madison smiled softly, recalling the lessons she had been learning over the past months. "I realized that chasing wealth and appearances doesn't fill the heart," she said. "I wanted to be admired, but I never realized how much more rewarding it is to be respected and trusted." Emily's eyes sparkled with understanding, and she nodded, sensing the authenticity in Madison's words. "My dad always says the same thing," she replied. "You can have everything money can buy, but if you can't treat people well, it doesn't matter." Madison reached across the table and ruffled Emily's hair gently. "Your dad taught me that lesson too," she admitted. "And you, Emily, helped me see it in a way I never could have on my own." Daniel approached the table then, his presence calm but commanding, and Madison felt a rush of warmth and admiration for the man who had quietly guided them both. "Girls," he said, smiling, "we're a team, remember? Every successful family, every strong business, every good life is built on respect, trust, and teamwork, not money or charm alone." Madison nodded, absorbing his wisdom, realizing that the past year of her life had been a transformation in ways she had never imagined. Her ambitions had shifted. She no longer measured her worth by her looks or social status, but by the depth of her connections and the integrity of her actions. The restaurant became a microcosm of life itself, a place where each interaction offered lessons in humility, patience, and leadership. Madison took on small projects, mentoring staff, organizing events, and learning the intricacies of managing a team with empathy rather than authority. Her relationship with Daniel deepened naturally, based on mutual respect, shared values, and a growing affection that neither had rushed to define but both silently cherished. Emily, observing this evolution, felt a sense of security and pride in her father's choices, realizing that Madison had become more than just a visitor in their lives. She had become a trusted ally and a positive influence. The turning point came during a particularly hectic weekend, when the restaurant was hosting a charity gala for a local children's hospital. Madison coordinated with staff, managed logistics, and ensured every guest felt valued, all while maintaining her composure under pressure. Daniel, watching her navigate challenges with grace, finally acknowledged her growth. "You've come a long way, Madison," he said quietly, a note of genuine admiration in his voice. "You've learned something that so many people never do, that true strength and wealth are measured by character and kindness, not appearances." That evening, as the gala concluded successfully, Emily tugged at Madison's sleeve. "See," she whispered, "you did well. You really are part of our family now." Madison hugged her gently, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment that no luxury or title could ever provide. As the weeks turned into months, Madison continued her journey of personal growth, learning from Daniel, Emily, and Mark Anderson about the power of humility, the importance of respect, and the value of genuine human connection. The once superficial woman who had entered the restaurant seeking wealth and advantage had transformed into someone who understood the real meaning of success. She realized that life's richest rewards were not measured in dollars or status, but in the trust, respect, and love one earned and nurtured over time. Madison's friends noticed the change too. She no longer boasted about wealth or flaunted social status. Instead, she spoke of meaningful experiences, ethical decisions, and the joy of seeing others succeed. Julia Reynolds, initially skeptical of the entire endeavor, admitted privately that she had learned from Madison's transformation as well, realizing that true influence came from integrity, not manipulation. Emily continued to be the guiding light. reminding both Madison and Daniel of the simple yet profound truths that often went unnoticed. That every individual, regardless of their position, deserved respect, that kindness multiplied when shared, and that genuine love and care created a legacy far more enduring than any material fortune. Madison Harper, having once sought to manipulate circumstances to her advantage, now stood as a testament to the power of growth, reflection, and humility. The restaurant thrived, not only as a business, but as a beacon of community and values. Daniel, proud of the man he had become and the positive influence he now shared, found joy in seeing Madison embrace her true self. And Emily, wise beyond her years, smiled often, knowing that she had been instrumental in shaping the people around her toward integrity, empathy, and authentic connection. The city continued its relentless pace outside the restaurant's elegant walls, but within, a family had found balance, respect, and mutual growth. Madison had discovered the richest rule in life. Wealth and status could never replace respect, humility, and genuine human connection. And that lesson, once learned, would guide her for the rest of her life. The months that followed marked a profound transformation, not just in Madison Harper, but in the entire rhythm of life surrounding Daniel Thompson and his daughter Emily. Madison's once fast-paced, appearance-driven life had slowed into one of purpose, thoughtfulness, and authentic engagement, where every choice reflected a deeper understanding of what it meant to live with integrity. She became a familiar presence in Daniel's world. Not as an outsider seeking status, but as a partner, in every sense quietly supporting the restaurant's operations, mentoring staff, and cultivating genuine connections with people who had previously seemed distant or unremarkable to her. Emily's influence remained central to Madison's transformation. The young girl, perceptive and wise beyond her years, continued to observe Madison closely, noting the subtle ways in which she handled responsibility, challenges, and relationships. Emily's trust, once earned cautiously, grew steadily, and their bond deepened into a genuine friendship. "You've really changed, Madison," Emily said one evening as they prepared a charity dinner at the restaurant. "You don't just talk about respect, you show it." Madison smiled, feeling a quiet pride in the affirmation. "I've had a great teacher," she replied, glancing at Daniel, who was coordinating with the kitchen staff, his calm authority and warmth evident in every movement. Even Mark Anderson noticed the shift in Madison. He had initially treated her with skepticism, wary of someone entering Daniel's life with a combination of charm and ambition. But over time, he observed her evolving patience, thoughtfulness, and commitment to genuine relationships. "You're doing more than just proving yourself," Mark said one afternoon while reviewing the restaurant's finances with Madison. "You're learning what it means to build a legacy, not just chase profit." Madison nodded, absorbing the weight of his words. The restaurant itself became a living reflection of the lessons Madison was learning. The staff operated not just as employees but as collaborators, each person treated with respect and recognized for their contributions. Daniel's leadership, combined with Madison's growing insight into human behavior and organizational dynamics, elevated the establishment from a luxury dining experience to a place known for its warmth, professionalism, and genuine care. Outside the restaurant, Madison's personal life also evolved. The glamorous parties and superficial friendships that had once dominated her social calendar no longer held appeal. She discovered fulfillment in the simple but meaningful joys: a shared laugh with Emily, a quiet conversation with Daniel, or the satisfaction of mentoring a staff member who had struggled with confidence. Her former friends, including Julia Reynolds, sometimes struggled to understand the depth of her transformation. But Madison no longer sought validation through social approval. She had found something far more substantial: a life aligned with values, purpose, and authentic connection. Challenges inevitably arose, testing Madison's resolve and growth. A rival restaurateur, envious of the establishment's rising reputation, attempted to undermine Daniel's business by spreading rumors and creating logistical disruptions. Madison faced the situation with calm determination, coordinating with staff, clarifying misunderstandings with patrons, and addressing the rival with diplomacy and firmness. Daniel observed her handling of the crisis with admiration, recognizing the strength, intelligence, and integrity she had cultivated. Emily, always a keen observer, whispered to Madison one evening, "You didn't just save the restaurant, you earned everyone's respect, even more than my dad." Madison smiled, touched by the child's perspective, realizing that respect and trust, once earned, were far more powerful than wealth, charm, or social status. The turning point in Madison's journey arrived when she confronted a personal challenge that mirrored the lessons she had been learning. An old acquaintance from her previous social life, someone who had always measured success in money and appearances, attempted to lure her back into her old habits, offering invitations to exclusive events and ostentatious displays of wealth. Madison faced the temptation with clarity, recognizing the emptiness of her former pursuits. She declined graciously, but firmly, understanding that true fulfillment came not from admiration or superficial pleasures, but from integrity, empathy, and meaningful relationships. That night, as she walked home through the quiet streets of New York, Madison reflected on the journey she had undertaken. She recalled the first night she had met Daniel in the restaurant, the tension, the misjudgments, and the lessons Emily had taught her through a simple but powerful statement about respect. Madison realized that life had granted her an extraordinary gift, the chance to relearn the meaning of success, to embrace humility, and to cultivate authentic connections that would endure far beyond material wealth. Over time, Madison's influence on the restaurant and the Thompson family became undeniable. She worked alongside Daniel to expand charitable initiatives, implement staff development programs, and create community events that elevated the establishment beyond mere profit. Emily thrived under the combined guidance of her father and Madison, gaining confidence, wisdom, and a clear understanding of how respect, kindness, and integrity shape the world. As the restaurant grew in reputation, so did the recognition of Madison's transformation. Patrons often commented not only on the elegance of the establishment, but on the warmth, care, and respect with which every guest was treated. Madison, who had once sought to manipulate circumstances for personal gain, had become a leader in her own right, not through force or charm, but through integrity, empathy, and unwavering commitment to doing what was right. Daniel, observing Madison's growth, felt a quiet pride and gratitude. He recognized that life had a way of guiding people to the lessons they needed most, and Madison had embraced hers fully. Emily, who had once questioned Madison's intentions, now trusted her implicitly, knowing that the woman who had entered their lives with ambition and charm had evolved into someone who understood the true measure of wealth. One evening, as the family sat together after a long day at the restaurant, Emily curled up beside Madison and whispered, "Thank you for staying, for really being here." Madison hugged her gently, feeling the depth of the child's sincerity. "Thank you for teaching me," she replied softly. "You reminded me what really matters." Madison Harper, once captivated by appearances, status, and immediate gratification, had undergone a journey that reshaped her values, her priorities, and her understanding of life itself. She had learned that respect, humility, and empathy were far more rewarding than wealth or charm, and that true success was measured not by what one had, but by how one treated others and contributed to the world around them. In the warm glow of the restaurant lights, surrounded by the people she had come to cherish and respect, Madison realized that she had found something richer than she had ever imagined. A life rooted in authenticity, guided by principles and filled with meaningful connections that would endure far beyond any fleeting pleasures or superficial triumphs. As the seasons changed, Madison Harper's life had become intertwined with Daniel Thompson and Emily in ways that went far beyond the initial encounters at the luxury restaurant. She no longer approached life with the single-minded pursuit of glamour and social advantage. Instead, her every action reflected lessons she had learned from observing Daniel's quiet strength, Emily's perceptiveness, and the guidance of Mark Anderson. The restaurant, once simply a venue for elegance and display, had transformed under their combined efforts into a symbol of integrity, respect, and community. Madison's mornings often began before dawn, preparing for busy days alongside the staff, while evenings were spent organizing events, mentoring employees, and supporting charitable causes. Through her dedication, she demonstrated that leadership was not about authority or charm, but about empathy, patience, and empowering others to succeed. Emily, growing wiser with each passing year, continued to observe and learn, often surprising Madison and Daniel with her insights. One afternoon, as they walked together through a local community garden, Emily asked, "Madison, why did you change so much?" Madison smiled, pausing to consider her answer. "I realized that chasing appearances and wealth doesn't create happiness or respect," she explained. "It took me time, but I learned that the way you treat people, no matter their position or status, is what really matters. That's how you measure true wealth." Emily nodded, understanding fully. "That's what I've been trying to teach you," she said softly, her eyes shining with quiet pride. The pivotal moment in Madison's journey arrived during the annual charity gala, now a much-anticipated event in the city's social calendar. This year, it was not about showcasing wealth, but about highlighting community, generosity, and the achievements of ordinary people making extraordinary contributions. Madison, Daniel, and Mark worked seamlessly together, ensuring that every detail reflected authenticity and care. As the gala progressed, Madison watched the faces of attendees, noting how gratitude, humility, and respect created an atmosphere far more powerful than any display of opulence. Later that evening, Daniel took Madison aside, his voice calm but full of warmth. "You've grown in ways I never expected," he said. "Not because you had to, but because you chose to. You've learned what many never do. That real success isn't about money or appearances, but about integrity, kindness, and respect." Madison felt a wave of fulfillment, realizing that her journey had come full circle. The lessons Emily had imparted, initially delivered with the innocence of a child, had shaped her into someone who understood the richness of character and the value of authentic relationships. She looked around at the bustling restaurant, the smiling faces of staff and guests, and felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not from personal gain, but from knowing that she had contributed to something meaningful. Emily, standing beside her father and Madison, smiled knowingly. "You get it now," she said. Madison hugged her tightly. "Yes, Emily, I do, and I'll never forget it." Time continued its steady march forward, and the bond between Madison, Daniel, and Emily only deepened. They faced challenges, celebrated successes, and built a life grounded in respect, integrity, and genuine affection. Madison's friends, once bemused by her choices, came to admire her transformation, recognizing that true influence and fulfillment stemmed not from appearances, but from character and compassion. Madison Harper, who had entered Daniel's world seeking opportunity and status, had become someone who embodied the lessons she had learned from the people who mattered most. She understood that wealth could never replace respect, that charm without integrity was hollow, and that the true measure of a person lay in how they treated others. The restaurant thrived, not merely as a business, but as a testament to these values, a place where respect, generosity, and authenticity reigned supreme. And Emily, ever perceptive, remained the quiet reminder of the journey that had shaped Madison. The child who had once asked a simple question about marriage had taught a powerful lesson: that the richest rule in life was to honor, respect, and care for everyone, regardless of their station. Madison Harper, standing at the center of this transformed life, finally understood the depth of that lesson. She had found a fulfillment far beyond luxury or social admiration, a richness of character and connection that would guide her for the rest of her life. In the glow of the restaurant lights, surrounded by family, friends, and colleagues who respected and cherished one another, Madison knew she had discovered the true meaning of wealth, the kind that lasts long after the wine has been poured and the lights have dimmed. And with that realization, her journey reached a serene and profound conclusion, a testament to the power of humility, respect, and the enduring value of integrity in shaping a meaningful life. This story teaches us that true wealth is not measured by money, status, or appearances, but by respect, integrity, and how we treat the people around us. It reminds us that kindness and humility can open doors that riches never will, and that sometimes the simplest lessons come from the most unexpected sources. No matter where life takes you, always remember honor others, value relationships, and never underestimate the power of character over material gain. If you like this story, make sure you subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share with your friends and family so you don't miss the next powerful story coming your way. Drop a heart in comment, like and subscribe my channel, and visit my channel for more interesting story videos.